Well, fairly late in the development product, we there was a person, one of our engineers, that basically, shamed me in front of the entire team. He
Mm.
made fun of me. He made fun of my approach to development of the product we were doing, and at the time, I certainly, he worked for me, and so.
Welcome to Reframe for Resilience. This is the podcast where we explore real stories of transformations from individuals who have shifted perspective and have found productive solutions that have had a real impact. I am Dr. Frank Douglas, your host, and my guest today is Dr. Telle Whitney. She is a PhD from Caltech in computer science. Not many women at her time were in that field. Even today, there are not many women with PhDs in computer science. Fortunately, there are more, but there are not many. We need more. And in fact, having said that, her book, she's an author, and her book is entitled Rebooting Technology Culture. She talks in her book about the 6 C's, so I think we'll hear a little bit about that. Dr. Whitney, welcome.
Oh, it's so lovely to be here. I'm very much looking forward to this. Dr. Douglas?
Well, thank you, and I enjoyed our pre-interview conversation. And so I'd like to start by asking you to share with us an anecdote, an episode where you had a challenge, you were perhaps stuck, and you had to think differently and approach things differently.
Oh, well, so, I mean, writing this book is one of the places where I had to think about it differently because I, I led a conference of women, so bringing more women into technology for many years, and I saw so many bright women from very diverse that were excited about technology, but many of them did not stay. And so really what the reason why I wrote this book is to think about it differently. I mean, that you can create a culture where everybody thrives, and there are great leaders that have done that.
Yeah, and in fact, the subtitle to your book has to do with creating a culture, igniting innovation, if I recall from what you told me, igniting innovation and creating that culture where everyone can thrive.
Right. And just to stay with that for just a minute, diversity and equity and inclusion is so important, but often for many companies, it was a checkbox. And one of the great topics that I explored in this book is how can you be creative? How do you really create innovations, but also ensure that you're inclusive? Because many of your staff will have great ideas if you ask them.
So, what are the challenges that you found as you think back about your early days in the tech industry? You were one of the few. What were the challenges that you found about being included, about feeling that you belonged and being valued for what you were contributing?
Well, in my early days, so I arrived in Silicon Valley in the late '80s, and I had just graduated from Caltech. And although my work was at several startups, semiconductor startups, building chip products, I was very eager to meet other women. And so one of my first challenges is just finding other women who were in technology. And in those early years, I met several women out of Stanford. Some of them are still friends today. And in particular, I met Anita Borg. And we created this conference. But I kept the people who helped me, support me, and nurtured me separate from my technical job at the time.
Why was that?
Well, because there wasn't many women at the company. There were a few, but the companies I worked at, I was one of a few women. And so I found it was easier to create a community that was outside work, although that changed over time. I mean, as I continued to work in technology, there were more women that I worked with also.
Mhm. Uh, you mentioned Anita, was the name you called. Uh, was there anything that she did that gave you a different insight, a different perspective?
Well, I met Anita Borg the first year I was there, and I mean, I really what I wanted was to be recognized as a contributing technologist. That was my driving force, and so at the time, I downplayed the fact that I was a woman. I mean, this is a common. I observed that this is a common story. And Anita, who had also just moved to Silicon Valley, she was much more connected with some of the organizations in Washington and other places that were focused on celebrating the achievements of women. And so, what she introduced me to was a social science about how you think about diversity and inclusion and how you can make a difference based on that data.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that? What about that data helped you?
Well, so as a woman technologist working at this company, more than anything else, I wanted to be recognized as a technologist. It was very important to me. And so I tended to downplay the fact that I was a woman technologist, even while in my personal life, finding other technical women who to help create a community. And so I mean, some of the data is that be many of the people who work in companies, they have inherent biases. I mean, in your work, you must see this all the time. I mean, we all have biases. And so I saw that myself and other women were often not given the opportunities to lead important projects unless we pushed.
We talk about coming to work and being your authentic self. So I want to
Yeah.
push on this a little bit more because there are so many of us, myself included, who, suffer from, we call it the imposter syndrome, or trying not to be who we really are in order to fit in. Now, if you were able to be your authentic self, to be a woman top technologist, how would you have presented yourself differently? How would you have presented the work you're doing differently? What would have been different?
Yes, I mean, great question. And to be honest, that's what the book is about, is it has many examples of how people actually approach these problems differently. But let me give you one story. At my second startup, which was called Malleable Technologies, I was the head of engineering. And I mean, we were developing a very complex product. We did chip design, we had customer software, we had digital signal processing, coding that went onto our chip. And the whole thing had to work together. We made a voice over IP processor. Well, fairly late in the development product, we there was a person, one of our engineers, that basically, I mean, shamed me in front of the entire team. He made fun of me. He made fun of my approach to development of the product we were doing. And at the time, I certainly, I mean, he worked for me. And so I talked to him in private and I told him it was not okay, the behavior that he had. But what I have since learned is that by not talking at all publicly about how his behavior was not appropriate, it it shattered a bit of the trust with the overall department.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're not really standing up and being the leader that you were, and visibly doing that eroded a little bit of the trust.
That's right. I mean, I did it in private, but I didn't do it publicly, and that was a mistake. I mean, I say, certainly I would have said different comments to the entire
Yeah.
team, but that was a big lesson for me, and it's one of the stories I feature in the book.
No, I can relate to that because when I
Yeah.
had such problems, I did what you did. I would go and do it privately until finally, way into, I was actually on the board of management, and the CEO was really, really off and was ridiculing one of our top scientists and saying things that were absolutely incorrect and ridiculing the scientists. And I finally actually spoke up and told him it was inappropriate. Of course, the scientists were all aghast because they had never seen me publicly, confront my colleagues or my boss. And so I did. And you are right, that did a lot for the esprit de corps and the confidence of the scientists. Just to see that, and I was at that time the global head of research and development, to see that their boss, came forward and defended, one, their science, and two, defended the scientist and his capability in presenting his science. So it is difficult for us, but we do have to make that step and choice.
Let me give you, so how about, let me just give you one more story. So one of the people I interviewed for the book was a man named Al Zolar, who was the CEO of Lotus. He worked for IBM, and he is Black. And so when he described what fairly early in his career, where he was giving a really important customer presentation. And after the presentation was done, the customer asked his boss not to include him in any future discussion. And he wasn't sure, did I not present this information right? And the customer was Southern, and he suspected that he was hitting some biases, but his boss stood by him. And together they actually found a better way to present the information. And many years later, that same customer said that he really appreciated Al's presentation. And of course, he went on to be quite successful at IBM.
Yeah. One of the things which we talk about in the reframing process is when faced with a problem, is to find a better problem to solve that is related to that problem, but to find a better problem to solve. So tell me, as we wrap up, if there are 2 or 3 principles you would like to leave us with, and I would love to hear about your 6 C's, because I think there are a number of principles in there, if you would share that with us.
Yes, of course. So the 6 C's are creativity, courage, confidence, curiosity, communication, and community. And if you look at innovation, focusing on creativity, where all ideas are welcomed and listened to, is so important. But at the heart of my story is courage. I mean, as I think about what why I've been successful over the years, it's taking risks when presented with an opportunity, and that courage to really go in even when you're not sure how it's all going to work out is really important.
Dr. Whitney, thank you very much. And you leave us with something that is very important: courage. I was privileged to participate in a short course that the dean of the graduate school of Meharry Medical Center had. And one of the things that stuck with me, she said to the graduate students participating in this course, she said, never say no to yourself. Mm-hmm. There are enough people who will tell you no. And I thought that succinctly was just so important. So let us
courage. What a great quote. Yes, that's a great quote.
It is a fantastic quote, and I thank her for it. Never say no to yourself. Thank you very much, Dr. Whitney.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas.